I'm Martyn, and joining me again this week is Sam Michael.
Hello.
And Chris Walker-Thompson.
Hello.
So, The Three Doctors, how did you both first discover it?
I think that was one of the last episodes I watched, actually, that was a multi-Doctor story. Five Doctors were one of the first ones I ever watched, getting it on VHS. But the Three Doctors I didn't watch till quite a while later. I think I actually first watched it by downloading it illegally from LimeWire, of all places.
You naughty boy.
I seem to remember watching them on a PC. Very modern for 2005. But yeah, so that's how I watched Three Doctors. I think I downloaded all four parts in one go. And what it would have been is it would have been someone who would have literally used some sort of digital device to have recorded the VHS onto digital and then uploaded it. So the DVD wasn't even out at the time, I don't think, when I watched it.
No, it was a bit later, wasn't it? Well, the Three Doctors was strange. I think it was the second episode I watched purely on UK Gold. I joined in at sort of halfway through the Time Monster.
Oh, right.
So the next episode was Three Doctors, and I was confused as hell. I had no idea what was going on, really. Didn't really understand why there were three Doctors. Nothing clicked.
I mean, nowadays we're used to this, aren't we? Since then, in the new series now, they've done multi-Doctor stories in the Day of the Doctor, and we even had Time Crash. And even in the first episode of Peter Capaldi's story, Matt Smith turned up. And it wasn't jarring because it's been done so much now. We wouldn't be surprised now if to push ratings, they'd go and whack David Tennant in an episode, or they'd just pick up Matt Smith and put him in and have them bump into each other. Twice upon a time, now we're even picking other people to play other Doctors and bring them in. I mean, there's no reason you could go and get Sean Pertwee and go, right, we're going to have the third Doctor turn up, or anyone else, and it's getting to that stage that it's so kind of, we accept it. I watched the Three Doctors, I reckon, a good 15 years after I watched the Five Doctors. So it wasn't a big deal. If anything, there weren't enough Doctors for me for a multi-Doctor story. I remember watching it expecting, which I'm sure we're going to get on into a bit, expecting to see all three of them. And obviously you get sort of a limited bit of Hartnell. And now we all realise the reason for that. And if anything, we're really lucky to have had Hartnell in it at all. But I wonder what the fandom was back then. What was the reaction? Because you remember the reaction when Day of the Doctor came on. So I wonder what the expectation was at the time. Were people expecting to see companions? Did some people, I wonder, considering the show had been on for 10 years, did they think this could have been a jump the shark moment or a stupid idea?
This idea was shot down a few times before by Terrence Dicks, as he confirmed. It was always one of those sort of those fan things that they said in. All the fans kept going on about it, and we thought that was a bit ridiculous. And then they did it. They decided, do you know what, 10th year, go on.
Wasn't Pertwee initially against it as well?
He was a bit sort of cautious about it because he didn't want to be upstaged. They're very territorial, performers, of that age and so on. They're the reason why they have such things as first billing, don't they?
Yeah.
It's because they just, he says, well, this is my show. This is the spotlight's on me. I don't want my shot taken over by someone else.
A lot of the Doctors did that, didn't they? I think a lot of them, especially, it was that very old school way of doing television or films, is that you'd have your lead man, you'd have your leading lady, you'd have your supporting cast, you'd have your villain. It was a very sort of formatted way. And I think John Pertwee was a very traditionalist in entertainment and television. So I can imagine he would have been a little bit put off. We know the infamous story of how he kicked off when the Master got a bigger picture in the Radio Times than him. And he got into the corner. And you sort of think, well, imagine being told suddenly that you are the lead, you are Doctor Who, but now you're going to have another Doctor Who come in and they're not going to be your support, and they are going to kind of just from nowhere be dropped back in as the lead character.
Patrick Troughton was a bit sort of easygoing about things, so he wasn't too fussed. From what accounts I've read and whatnot, it seemed he did actually enjoy the time on there. But yeah, John Pertwee had a very much, I suppose it was his show. It was he took great care of it, from what I've researched and heard. So he really sort of wanted to protect that, and he thought, actually, what works, and he's a quite particular man. He's like he's line learning. He has to be very precise. So he's got his, everything running smoothly. He is the showman, the showman, and also everyone's mate. Because strangely, I mean, television. I wouldn't say strangely. Actually, I was going to say it's not as common these days, but it kind of is. Is that in 10 years, a lot changes in production and values and things like that. I remember, I think David Tennant said that looks like more money it goes into Doctor Who now than it did when he was on it.
Yeah.
He was surprised at how things are being run now compared to when he was doing it, and so on. And John, I mean, there was only a space of what, 4 years since Pat left, but they've moved to colour. They do a lot more now. But yeah, John took it quite. I don't think you. I don't want to paint him as an arsehole because he wasn't. But he wasn't in any way. There's that actor sort of threatened thing. It's like any actor probably will pick up a script and go, well, why have they got more lines than me? You know, that sort of thing. And it's not necessarily a vain thing. It's just how actors of a certain generation do.
And I wonder then there's various stories kind of, which I'm sure, again, we'll cover further down to do with, Patrick and John and how they, the dynamic of them and how it worked and how actually that relationship of the second and the third Doctor got taken all the way up to the five Doctors. But from the sense of the bands, I kind of wonder what the feeling was there.
What's amazing about that show is that TV shows don't tend to be on for that long. For this Doctor Who was. And it was on for most of the year until Jon Pertwee era, in which they cut down significantly.
That's because he was doing his DJ sets in Ibiza.
I think it was Derek Sherwin. I think he insisted on it as well because he said the schedule was stretching the whole cast too thin.
Probably was, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really hard one to base without actually being there or hearing from them, but I reckon there must have been some excitement.
The BBC certainly made a big deal of it.
Yeah.
I imagine. So it must be good. I mean, that Radio Times cover is iconic. The one of all three of them, and it's quite nice. One thing people forget, actually, I think one of the highlights of the three Doctors is that photo shoot, because that's the one time those three were actually together, wasn't it?
They also did meet for another sort of photo shoot, which was at the back end of Hartnell's one day of filming.
Oh, okay.
But there's some photos over there in not sure where it was, in Ealing. I think a misconception of one of the myths was that it was in Hartnell's garden. Okay. But by the end of the day, they did have a photo shoot. So I was doing a bit of research, actually, a while ago for a project I won't discuss right now. But it's a sort of rundown of what the filming dates actually were for these bits. Yeah, so the Radio Times photo shoot date sort of varies, but apparently it was like in October 1972. The actual day they filmed both Hartnell scenes and also Dark Side of My Mind fight. That was that day. And then right at the very end of the day, they did have, or some point during the day, it says here, time unknown, Pat Troughton turned up to do a photo, which is why, actually, if you see this photo, he looks different. He has a sort of a haircut and his sideburns trimmed. That's what he has in the episode, but for this photo is without it. So he sort of just turned up from a previous gig or something.
Yeah, I've seen that picture.
I've just Google imaged it and I can see it. Yeah, that's like just got back from holiday as well.
Yeah, and that's the one with all of them just standing there in the garden, isn't it? Or the garden-esque. Yeah. All of the filming took place at that line of the works. Blah 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 blah. And then obviously they did the studio stuff, which
So the Three Doctors kind of marks the moment when the Brigadier started to become a little bit dim.
I was watching it the other day when the series 10 box set came out on the Blu-ray, and I was watching it, and I've always loved this about the Brigadier, is the fact that he has seen the most unbelievable things. He's even, like, straight from the off in Spearhead from Space, puts Liz Shaw's skepticism to rest by saying, he goes, well, I've fought against Yetis and Cybermen. Did you know that there might be life out there somewhere? And he's very open-minded. But yet, and then immediately it goes back to his original. And he's seen all these things, Dalek, Axons, Autons, all these various things. But yet suddenly he gets abducted by these big gelatin things and just says, oh, now you've really gone too far. It's like, he goes, you're Doctor, taking the... Come on, you must be useless by now. It's like the same reason I don't understand how Sergeant Benton kept his job. I just don't know.
Or what the turnover was for the amount of, like, staff deaths. Because they always say, don't they? They go, oh, Doctor. They always say, in the early series, Unit was a very, very lovely little thing. It was a lovely little family-friendly kind of gang. And they kind of make it out like almost like it's Torchwood, but it's literally go out and then about 30 soldiers just die. And then they kind of end it by all having a dance with some hippies or something, It's weird. But yeah, you're right. That's how I watched this as well, because obviously the Blu-ray came out, and I watched it. And I remember thinking the Brigadier's pissing me off in this story. And the thing that cracks me up in this story as well, and I only realised this when I watched it this time round, was that why has the Doctor never let the Brigadier in the TARDIS before?
That's very true, yeah.
I mean, oh, what? I'm like, sorry, how long has he been there? You've never thought to just have a little look inside that? I love the way that all this time that they've been going, oh, what's the Doctor like then? You've just got this new guy. How's he getting on? And they go, oh, yeah, he's all right. He's all right. And, well done on the Doctor, by the way. You should give him a pay rise. He saved the planet again this week. Yeah, smashing chap. Does have this box, though, that I mean, never just thought to look at it and go, bloody hell, that's good.
Well, I thought they had the sort of attitude of, well, the Doctor's a genius. However, he keeps spending a lot of time in that cupboard of his. They must think he's a lunatic, just thinking he just keeps going inside his cupboard. And they're like, because everyone who looks at it goes, oh, come on, Doctor, none of us are going to fit in there, for God's sake. But yeah, in this episode alone, they all fit in. And then they go, and they all quickly run in there. Like they expect the cupboard was going to protect them.
This is the thing, like, this isn't new to the Brigadier. Like, the Brigadier knows what the TARDIS is. Like, he knows that thing goes in space. He's seen it go a couple of times. He's at least seen him and Joe leaving it.
Yeah.
Times, right? So has he thought the whole time that the Doctor and Joe have just been stood inside this cupboard that for some reason can go to other places at different times, and he's just gone, yeah, they're just probably just like spooning in there or something. It just makes a lot of this episode just makes no sense. I do like the fact that the Brigadier does kind of go, oh, it's the old Doctor, and he sort of doesn't just accept, oh, it's a multi-Doctor thing. He's gone, oh, you've changed again, you've gone back. Why are you doing this? And I love the way Benton's just gone, what's this? Second Doctor, brilliant. How are you getting on? You're all right. Even at this point, it's like he's talking about that. If the three Doctors marks anything, it's the beginning of wibbly wobbly timey wimey.
It is amazing. It isn't until sort of the day of the Doctor that they actually sort of address a sort of reason why the Doctors can't remember them changing into each other. Because that was something I thought. He goes, hang on a minute. If I knew I was going to die, I'd go, hang on a minute. It's okay. I'm going to turn into this guy. Unless that's what they dread the most. They go, oh, no.
I think
oh, no, I can't turn into him. Oh, dear. And then John Pertwee is, you think you've got it tough.
You're right with the multi-Doctor thing. That does make sense, that the second they all go back to their own time, they forget whatever happened. And I like it, even in Time Crash, they did the whole thing that if there's something wrong in the timey thing and you appear with them, you'll age as well. It'll be like, no, you're in his timeline. It's as if you never regenerated.
That would explain why Patrick Troughton didn't sound like Patrick Troughton and sounded a bit more like Patrick Troughton as opposed to the second Doctor sort of thing.
Why David Tennant can't fit in his suit in Day of the Doctor. Why his hair's not sticking up anymore. No, I've got some Broadchurch, I can't spite that. No.
Back to the Brigadier, it just baffles me that he just seems to be so unwilling to believe what's happening, that's going on. And he's seen a lot of crazy but no, apparently he goes, I don't know, it's probably taken us up to some beach near Norfolk. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think after probably about 3 weeks into the job, especially 3 years into the working with the Doctor, I might start to think, well, this could be an alien invasion. It could be a dimension I'm trapped in. All these various things would be just apparent and obvious to me.
Reminds me of the Sergeant from Survival.
Yeah.
Not a blacked out, that's all. He's been working too hard. It's like,
I love Mr. Ross because you know that he's got the arseache when he gets back. He loathes his wife, kind of wishing eternity on that other dimension. I pity this guy, and he just turns up and he says, "Where have you been? You haven't got cold. You haven't been home." And he just goes, "You wouldn't believe me, love. Get along."
Yeah, exactly. It's such a good end to a line. That's actually quite New Who. To end on like a punchline. And it's just like you've got one of the most epic stories in years, Doctor. You've got a multi-Doctor story. You've got the biggest badass Time Lord ever, who never made made one appearance since. But Omega is just such a crazy being. He's been in the middle of a black hole, and I love that he comes home, and it's great acting from him because the character is all the way through. Just kind of looks a bit annoyed that he's stuck there. When the two Doctors are doing all that, well, yeah, we must be there. Well, why don't you do that then? He's kind of in the background going, oh, dude, this is rubbish, isn't it? I could do without this, if I'm honest. At the end, he's got his gun and he's kind of like, oh. And it's the first time when he approaches her, he sort of pauses for a minute and he sort of goes to say, I've just been to the end of the world. I've just lived an experience that no human will do. And he just sort of goes, nah, he wouldn't believe me. And he goes, supper ready. It's brilliant. Like, it's such a good line.
Shrugs it off and goes, well, that was a Wednesday. Whatever you say, love. Yeah. Reads his racing post and
Have you not heard of Omega? He had no heads. He just did a helmet. I don't know how he gets up.
I think he honestly wouldn't be able to tell the story because he just didn't understand anything that happened. He was just like, well, one thing I was here, next I was there, army chap there, two blokes arguing with themselves, apparently they're the same person. So, Isaac in a cape and a mask. We all walked through some steam, and and we were chased by raspberry jellies. I honestly couldn't tell you what happened today. All I know is that you wouldn't believe me. So back to the old grind.
That's the best thing about that character is that he's been on an amazing journey and he's learned nothing.
He just went down the pub with his caught up with the locals afterwards and just he goes, "You all right? Been up to much?" No, not really.
Exactly.
Going on to Omega though, I think the performance behind a mask is incredible. I don't think there's any other character like it. Close second, I'd say, would be Alan Benyon as Slar in Seeds of Death. Michael Wisher, of course, as well. How could I forget Davron? But the fact that there is literally nothing other than a voice coming from Omega.
Yeah, I agree. It reminds me a lot, that performance, of Jeffrey Beavers. Well, we're naming people behind the mask as the master. That sort of, it looks a bit stupid if you look at it straight away. It's kind of a very nice frock with a big metal helmet on it, but it's so seriously done. Quite a tragic character, Omega, as well.
It's amazing, actually, the performance, because it is vocal and also sort of the arms, really. You do end up actually feeling for him in the end.
Yeah.
And it's incredible because the face is the gateway for most performances. Obviously, the fact that you've carried off a voice, not in audio, but in video, you could just tell the emotion from how he talks and whatnot. I like to think that over time, he did actually have a more happier face on his mask, and he just sort of turned it upside down. Unless he just sat there miserably and goes, "My will."
He has got different masks with different expressions. I think he should have swapped them throughout. So when he was angry, it was just, "You death." 1 minute. Put that one on.
Hang on, how's he doesn't realise that he hasn't got a body? He's had a mirror there the whole time.
That's true.
I've never understood that. He takes off the helmet and he's like, there's nothing left of you. And he goes,
that is weird.
Well, I just think it was something like as simple as, like if he has to scratch his head, does he just scratch the helmet? Why am I scratching it? And then takes it off.
He bet he felt great. Like there's no pains, no kind of cracking neck. Never sneezed, maybe. No, never just. Yeah, it's weird that he didn't realise that. Unless he was just invisible. Unless to him it felt like being invisible.
Yeah.
That must have been it. If they'd got under his helmet, if they put their hand through it, they might have hit something. Or he would have felt it, maybe. It would have been like being a ghost, maybe. That's it. So two things right there as well. When he fights Pertwee and he turns into sort of an evil, I don't know what he turns into, and has a fight with Pertwee. You know when that happened?
Oh, you mean the fight with Terry Walsh with John Pertwee again?
Yeah. Well, if he hasn't got a body, why can't he just do that?
I don't know.
Do you know Pertwee go, well, hang on a minute. Very convenient now you haven't got a body. The second thing, you were strangling me, mate, and you had this kind of slightly racist-looking mask on. And I thought that I was going to say something. And also, why didn't he fight the Troughton? If you're going to pick a fight,
pick on the little one.
The little one, yeah.
You'd have to pay me more to do that.
Maybe that was it.
Terry Walsh didn't want to get on his knees. When I had my laser eye surgery about a month and a bit ago now, I couldn't see very well after that. Still couldn't see for about in the second week. So I decided, this is the time I'm going to watch some John Pertwee. And I thought it was great because it helped really well because I couldn't quite make out if it was Terry Walsh or John Pertwee.
Well, that's all right then. No, that works out. Yeah, because those action scenes can be a bit jarring at time. One thing I do think is quite realistic, and I find myself sticking up a lot for the crap in Doctor Who, hence why we spent the whole episode of me defending Dimensions in Time. Now, the main thing, we haven't talked about it too much, but the one thing people kick off a lot about is the monsters. They say they're rubbish. You know, the little blah 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 blah, and they kind of, you know, wobble along, and they're invincible. Don't get me wrong, but like they look a bit sort of, you know, bubble wrap just sort of over the top of it. But I genuinely think they make sense because you've got to remember Omega's gone mental at this point. You've got to think of him like a human stuck on his own for so long. Those monsters are like the best that a madman can come up with. He's just like he's a blob with a claw, and they're invincible. Like that actually is what a mad person's thing would look like. If he was sane, it would look like a Cyberman. But I love the point that like he's so gone in the head that physical form or human forms almost like just left his memory. I actually think it's a really clever idea to have them. I mean, if anything, those monsters are the equivalent of somebody stuck in a cell for life who's gone mad, getting their hand and throwing it against the wall. I mean, that is what they are. They're literally painting with your own like they are like, I've got to create a monster. This is what my mad mind has come up with. I think that's quite clever.
It also looks like the blob itself, doesn't it? The time bridge. I don't know. Maybe they looked at that and said, "What effects can we do? Well, we can do this." I don't know. I actually don't mind those things. For years, for a few years at least, I thought they were Yetis when I was little. Just because I remember vaguely the shape, and obviously when I got to see things properly, I realised I'm an idiot.
What do you guys make of Katy Manning?
It's fine. Like she kind of gets her. I quite like seeing her talk to Troughton, because I think that's one thing we've always wondered about, and Big Finish have done this a couple of times, of mix and matching the companions. That works quite well. I do kind of like it when the idea mixed them up. It was quite nice seeing David Tennant's Doctor with Clara, because he kind of did that kind of flirty thing. Matt Smith was kind of this kind of geeky, he was a little less human than a lot less human really than Tennant's Doctor. So it was kind of nice to see him trying to kind of keep that charm that the 10th Doctor had, that kind of flirtatious nature with her. So it's nice to see Troughton with Jo, who's just kind of like quite happy to see her. You know, he's a lovely moment. He says, now, I might call you Jo, might I? Like, it's really nice to see. But I would have liked to have seen a bit more of that, actually, with Katy Manning, the way that they interacted. I would have liked to have seen them, a bit like in the Five Doctors when you see Tegan go off with the First Doctor and things like that. I'd like to have seen them go off for a little bit, to have a bit of time to see how she would have coped. Because had he not regenerated, he would have gone to unit as the Second Doctor. And had Jo come along, would they have got on? What would the dynamic have been like? I would say, that Third Doctor does boss Jo around a little bit. Come along, Jo. Think, Jo. Lateral thinking, Jo. Things like that. Whereas I think the Second Doctor would have just been like, maybe treated her a bit like he did Polly.
Would you recommend this to people?
Yeah, I would do, actually. Only to classic fans, though. Like, if people are giving it a chance, I'd say it's a good one to check out. If you're trying to do a marathon in time for something, you know, or a new Doctor or anything, it does save time if you just watch the multi-Doctor specials. It's a good story. I think it's a really fun one, and it is what I do also love about it. It's something that's quite not easily done here. Since Day of the Doctor, it's always been about the 50th. They just haven't let go of that sort of nostalgic hype, in my opinion, until Series 11 came around. In which case, they decided to do it based on. Cool. But anyway, the thing about Three Doctors is it's almost forgotten the next week. It just fits in. It's a great special to celebrate 10 years, but then it just soldiers on. That is what I do like about it. I like it. It's such a really, really lovely tribute, a lovely anniversary special. It got on with it afterwards. It was a nice tribute, and then it got back to what it was. And that's really what they should be doing now.
I would say it's definitely worth watching, because it is actually quite a key moment in the overall story of Doctor Who. It's where he's been exiled to Earth, which is the whole purpose of, and this is it being lifted. The whole series changes after this. You know, we kind of don't see Unit anymore, and that's why I think it's a bit of a shame, this story, because we were joking earlier, but genuinely the Brigadier character does annoy me in this. He genuinely is just a bit stupid, and considering everything he's been through, maybe there should have been one more Unit story after this, like you were saying, to kind of come to terms with what had happened with meeting Omega and everything. And also the fact that it's Omega feels like it should be a bit of a bigger deal. It's a really nice idea. It's certainly an important story. It's quite nice seeing them lift the exile from the Doctor, and obviously next week was the Carnival of Monsters after this, so it's a drastic change. But it's a shame that it's the last time for a while you see the Unit family. You know, they just kind of patter off.